My name is Melissa Carter. I'm 38 years old. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and for the last 12 years, I built something from nothing, a company I thought was my second family. I was the woman people used to call relentless, too ambitious, too trusting, a contradiction that shaped my downfall, and tonight, I'm finally ready to confess how my closest partners, the men I once called brothers, tried to erase me from my own company. But what they didn't know is that I don't break quietly. Have you ever felt trapped by someone you trusted? Like this video, subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from. Because the silence I turned into revenge is only the beginning. It was a Tuesday morning when I walked into the courthouse, my heels echoing against the marble floor, my hands trembling but steady enough to carry the thick black binder that held my life inside it. That binder had every email, every contract, every number they thought I was too naive to notice. I remember whispering to myself, "This is it, Melissa. Either you fall today, or you make them burn." The courtroom felt cold and sterile. My ex-partners sat 3 rows ahead, smug smiles plastered across their faces as if they had already won. They wouldn't even look at me, and in that moment, something inside me cracked open. I wasn't the Melissa who once stayed quiet. I wasn't the woman who begged to be respected. I was something else. That's when I knew. This was no longer just business. This was war. I didn't come from money. My parents were teachers in a small town in North Carolina. We lived paycheck to paycheck, but they raised me to believe that knowledge and hard work could move mountains. I studied marketing at UNC, graduated at the top of my class, and by 26, I was already working for one of the largest firms in Charlotte. But corporate life felt like a cage, every idea shot down by someone older, every dream dismissed as too risky. So, when I met Daniel Ross and Gregory Miller, everything shifted. They were sharp, bold, and shared my hunger for building something new. Daniel had the tech knowledge, Greg had the investor connections, and I had the vision, the storytelling that could sell fire to water. We met in a cramped diner one night, eating cheap burgers, scribbling ideas on napkins like kids. That night, Phoenix Dynamics was born, and God did a rise. Within 5 years, our little startup turned into a multi-million-dollar firm. We worked insane hours, slept on office couches, celebrated milestones with cheap champagne. We were family, or so I thought. Looking back, the signs were there. The private meetings I wasn't invited to. The documents Greg said were too technical for me to worry about. The way Daniel brushed off my concerns with a smirk and a condescending "Relax, Melissa. You're overthinking again." I told myself it was stress. That businessmen sometimes carried egos like armor, that if I just worked harder, louder, they'd treat me as an equal. But one night changed everything. It was late, almost midnight. I'd gone back to the office to grab a folder I forgot before a client meeting. The building was nearly empty, just the hum of fluorescent lights. I walked past Daniel's office, and his computer screen was still glowing. I don't know what made me stop. Call it instinct. Call it the universe whispering. On the screen was a draft email to Greg. "Once she signs the new restructuring agreement, we'll file the paperwork to transfer majority ownership. She won't see it coming. She never reads the fine print." I remember my chest tightening, my hands going numb. They weren't just undermining me. They were planning to erase me. I backed away, heart pounding, and stumbled into my own office. I sat there in the dark, staring at my hands, whispering, No, no, they wouldn't. Not Daniel, not Greg. But deep down, I knew. The next morning, I tried to confront Daniel. My voice shook, but I looked him dead in the eyes. I saw your email. He froze, just for a second. Then he chuckled, shaking his head like I was some silly child. You must have misread. Melissa, you get too emotional when you're stressed. You should take a vacation. I wanted to scream, to slam the evidence in his face, but I stayed quiet. Something told me not yet. Greg, on the other hand, was colder. When I hinted at the restructuring, he leaned in, his tone sharp as a knife. Melissa, don't sabotage what we've built. You're essential in your way, but let the men handle the paperwork, all right? His words sliced deeper than I expected. Essential in your way, like I was a decoration, a mascot. I smiled. I nodded. I even thanked him for his advice, but inside, I was planning. For weeks, I carried their betrayal like a stone in my chest. I barely slept. I cried in the shower where no one could hear. I replayed every memory, our late-night meetings, our laughter, our "we're in this together" speeches. Had it all been a lie? I stopped eating, stopped calling my parents. I felt myself fading, as if the company had already been stolen and I was nothing but a ghost walking its halls. But one night, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror, I saw the fire I thought they killed was still there, and I whispered to myself, if they want war, I'll give them a war they'll never forget. I hired a lawyer, quietly, secretly, a woman named Rachel Monroe, sharp as a blade and twice as dangerous. She looked at me over her glasses during our first meeting and said, Melissa, if what you're telling me is true, you're not just fighting for shares, you're fighting for survival, and survival requires silence. Until the strike, for the next 2 months, I played their game. I smiled at meetings, laughed at their jokes, even signed documents while secretly copying everything to Rachel. Every email, every hidden clause, every whispered conversation I recorded on my phone. I became an actress in my own life, and every performance brought me closer to the finale. The night before the court hearing, I sat alone in my apartment, binder open on the kitchen table. I whispered, almost like a prayer, tomorrow they'll finally see me. But what I didn't know was, Daniel and Greg had one more trick, one last move they thought would bury me for good. And when I walked into that courtroom the next morning, the air was already thick with the weight of their final betrayal. The courthouse smelled faintly of old wood and disinfectant. Every sound echoed the shuffle of papers, the cough of a stranger, the hollow footsteps of lawyers who looked far too confident in their tailored suits. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my palms sweating under the polished oak surface. Across from me, Daniel and Greg sat with their attorneys, whispering like to kings preparing to watch their enemy executed. Daniel's smirk was unbearable. Greg's jaw was tight, his posture stiff, but his eyes smug. They thought this was a funeral, not a fight. All rise. The room stood as the judge entered. I forced my knees to stay steady. Rachel, my lawyer, leaned toward me and whispered, calm as ever, breathe. They think you're scared. Let them. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. The defense went first. Greg's attorney, a tall man with slicked back hair and a voice like oil, stood proudly. Your Honor, he began, this case is nothing more than the outburst of a disgruntled partner. My clients, Mr. Ross and Mr. Miller, built Phoenix Dynamics with discipline, strategy, and relentless dedication. While Miss Carter contributed in certain ways, the hard truth is she failed to uphold her responsibilities. The restructuring was a natural progression, not a betrayal. He shot me a glance, one that said, "Sit down, little girl." My stomach burned, but I stayed still. Then Rachel rose. God, she was a force. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to, Your Honor, she said softly. My client didn't just help build Phoenix Dynamics, she was its backbone. What Mr. Ross and Mr. Miller call natural progression is nothing short of theft. Tonight, we will show you the lies, the concealed documents, the evidence that proves they conspired to cut Miss Carter out of her own creation. Her words landed like knives. Even the courtroom stenographer glanced up for a second. Rachel clicked. A remote and a projector lit up behind us. The first slide appeared an email from Daniel to Greg. Once Melissa signs, we file immediately. She'll never notice, the jury murmured. Greg shifted in his seat. Daniel pretended to yawn. Rachel's voice was steady. Does that look like a natural progression, or does that look like deliberate deception? Then it was me. They asked me to take the stand. My heart thundered as I swore in and sat down. The microphone felt too close, my voice too fragile. The defense attorney began. His smile was polite, his tone dripping with condescension. Miss Carter, he said smoothly, would you describe yourself as detail-oriented? I nodded. Yes, always have been. He leaned in. Interesting. According to these records, you signed multiple documents without questioning them. You trusted my clients blindly. Is that correct? I clenched my fists under the table. I trusted my partners because I believed we were equals. He smirked. So you admit you didn't read the fine print? Rachel objected, argumentative. The judge nodded, sustained. Move on, but the damage was done. The jury saw me flinch. They saw me cornered. As I returned to my seat, Rachel leaned close, her voice a whisper. They're trying to paint you as knave. Don't let it shake. You, remember, we hold the blade. But inside, I was terrified. What if the jury bought into their story? What if they saw me as just an emotional woman over her head? And then the defense dropped its bomb. Greg's lawyer stood, holding up a folder. His voice sharpened. Your Honor, we have here newly discovered evidence, financial records showing Miss Carter's reckless spending of company funds. Lavish dinners, hotel stays, unapproved expenses, all charged to Phoenix Dynamics. My clients had every reason to protect the company from her mismanagement. He slapped the folder down dramatically. The jury leaned forward. Daniel smiled widely. My breath caught in my throat. I whispered to Rachel, trembling, "That's impossible." I never. Rachel's face stayed calm, but I saw the flicker in her eyes. She hadn't expected this. The judge allowed the documents to be entered into the record, and as I sat there, heart racing, one thought consumed me. They forged it. They created fake records. But how? And worse, how was I going to prove it before they destroyed me with their lies? The judge called a short recess. I stumbled out of the courtroom into the hallway, the walls closing in around me. Rachel grabbed my arm. Her voice was low, urgent. Melissa, listen to me. If these documents stick, you're finished. They'll bury you alive. I stared at her, shaking, my voice breaking. Then we have to prove the truth before it's too late. The hallway buzzed with whispers, reporters snapping photos, and deep inside, I realized Daniel and Greg hadn't just come to win. They came to destroy me completely. The hallway outside the courtroom was buzzing. Reporters held their microphones like vultures, flashing cameras in my face. Melissa, did you really embezzle company funds? Is it true you spent hundreds of thousands on yourself? I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was dry, my heart hammering. Rachel pushed through the crowd like a shield, guiding me into a quiet side room. She shut the door, pressed her back against it, and exhaled slowly. Melissa, she said, voice low but firm, they're playing dirty. Those records, they're forged. I know it. You know it. But the jury doesn't. I pressed my hands against my face, whispering, they're going to ruin me. Everything I built gone. Rachel crouched in front of me, her eyes sharp, steady. Listen, they slipped. Did you see the timestamp on the documents? I blinked, confused. What? She pulled a printed copy from her folder, pointing at the corner. Look here. These supposed expense reports. They're dated 6 months after you were officially cut off from company accounts. Which means, I gasped, they used the wrong timeline. Rachel smirked. For the first time that day. They're sloppy. And when people are sloppy, they get caught. We returned after recess. My pulse was still racing, but now a seed of fire was burning inside me. Daniel and Greg were laughing with their lawyers, smug as ever. But Rachel whispered to me, don't show your hand. Not yet. The judge called us back to order. Greg's lawyer stood again, waving the expense folder. Your Honor, as I was saying, these records show a clear pattern of reckless behavior from Miss Carter. Rachel rose slowly, like a predator stalking prey. Your Honor, permission to cross-examine these documents? The judge nodded. Rachel walked to the projector, clicked a button, and the same expense sheet filled the screen. The courtroom went silent. Ladies and gentlemen, she said softly, notice anything unusual here? She zoomed in on the timestamp. The numbers glowed bright on the screen. These so-called expenses are dated November 18th, 2022. She turned to the jury, her voice sharp now. But Miss Carter was legally locked out of Phoenix Dynamics accounts in May of 2022. So tell me, how could she possibly have spent money she didn't have access to? The room erupted. Gasps, murmurs. Even the judge raised his brows. Daniel's face darkened. Greg shifted uncomfortably. Greg leaned toward Daniel, whispering furiously, you idiot, you told me you checked this. Daniel hissed back, shut up. Keep your mouth shut, but the jury saw it. They saw the cracks. Rachel didn't stop. She pulled out another document, holding it up high. Furthermore, these supposed hotel stays, the reservation names don't even match Miss Carter's ID. They were under a corporate guest account booked from Daniel Ross's company card. The room froze. I looked at Daniel. His smug grin was gone. For the first time in weeks, I spoke up, my voice steady though my hands trembled. I trusted them, I said, staring straight at the jury. I trusted them with my life, my future, my dreams. And this is how they repay me. By stealing, by lying, by framing me for their sins. The courtroom was silent. Even the stenographer stopped typing for a second. Then, Rachel leaned toward me, whispering, should I? I frowned. Should you what? She smirked slightly, then pulled out a sealed envelope. She didn't show it to the court yet, only to me. Inside were photographs. Clear, undeniable photographs. Greg and Daniel are in a hotel lobby, shaking hands with a rival CEO. Dates stamped, signatures visible. My heart nearly stopped. Rachel, I whispered, Where did you? She cut me off. Anonymous source. Let's just say, someone on the inside doesn't like them as much as they think. I sat there, holding my breath, staring at the envelope. The jury was already suspicious. Daniel and Greg were slipping. And now, we had a weapon they didn't even know existed. But Rachel didn't play it yet. She leaned in, whispering, "Patience, Melissa. We don't just want to win. We want to destroy them." And as she tucked the envelope back into her folder, I realized something chilling. Whoever that anonymous source was, they were close. Too close. The air inside the courtroom felt heavier than before. The jury no longer looked at me with suspicion. They were staring at Daniel and Greg like something rotten had just been uncovered. Rachel placed her folder gently on the desk, her fingers resting on the envelope she'd shown me earlier. She didn't open it. Not yet. But just knowing it was there gave me strength. The judge adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Ross, Mr. Grayson, do you have an explanation for these inconsistencies?" Daniel's lawyer jumped up, his voice tight. "Your Honor, this is merely a clerical error, a mistake in formatting dates, nothing more." Rachel's laugh was soft, sharp, cutting through the silence. "A clerical error? An error that just so happens to benefit your clients while destroying mine?" Pause convenient. She turned toward the jury, her voice calm but laced with steel. "Errors like these aren't random. They're deliberate, and we will prove it." Rachel leaned close to me, whispering under her breath, "Melissa, the source who gave us these photos, they want something." My stomach twisted. "What do you mean, want something?" Rachel's eyes didn't leave the jury. "They didn't hand over this evidence out of kindness. They have their own agenda." I swallowed hard. "So we can't trust them?" Her lips pressed thin. "We trust the evidence, not the person." Rachel finally held up one photograph, just one. It was blurry, grainy, but recognizable. Daniel, sitting at a dinner table with Victor Hale, the CEO of our rival firm, Hailstone Industries. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Rachel's voice cut like a blade. "This photo was taken 3 weeks before Mr. Ross and Mr. Grayson forced Miss Carter out of her position. A private dinner with the head of her company's biggest competitor. Now tell me, ladies and gentlemen, does that look like loyalty to Phoenix Dynamics?" Daniel shot to his feet, red-faced. "That photo proves nothing," he shouted. "Business dinners happen all the time." The judge banged the gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Ross. You will have your turn." But the damage was done. The jury's eyes had shifted again. Just when I thought momentum was on our side, Greg's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, the defense calls a surprise witness." Rachel's head snapped toward him. "What?" The doors at the back of the courtroom opened, and in walked someone I never expected to see, my former assistant, Jenna. My chest tightened. Jenna, who had worked for me for 5 years. Jenna, who I had trusted like family. She couldn't, but she walked to the stand, her eyes cold, avoiding mine. Greg's lawyer smiled. "Miss Parker, would you please tell the court about your former boss, Melissa Carter?" Jenna adjusted the microphone. Her voice trembled, but it wasn't weakness. It was practiced. She wasn't the person you think she is." My mouth went dry. "What?" I whispered, but no one heard. Jenna continued, tears welling in her eyes. "She made us work long hours. She yelled when things weren't perfect. And she asked me once to withdraw cash from the corporate account and keep it off the books." Gasps filled the room. The jury shifted uncomfortably. Rachel shot up, furious. "Objection. Hearsay without evidence." But the judge allowed it. The jury will decide the credibility. I couldn't breathe. Jenna was lying, flat out lying, but she looked so convincing, so broken. I whispered, almost to myself, "Why, Jenna? Why are you doing this?" And then I caught it. The way Greg looked at her, the slight nod he gave. My heart sank. She'd been bought. My own assistant, my shadow, turned into their weapon. The courtroom was buzzing again. The jury's faces were torn, evidence against Daniel and Greg on one side, Jenna's emotional testimony on the other. Rachel scribbled something furiously on her notepad, then slid it across to me. It said only 3 words. "We fight back." And as Jenna wiped a fake tear on the stand, I realized the war had only just begun. The courtroom air was suffocating. Jenna's tears had poisoned everything. I could see the doubt crawling back into the jury's eyes, undoing all the progress we had made. Rachel didn't panic. She never panicked. But her pen tapped the desk with a sharp rhythm, tick, 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 as though she were timing a countdown. Rachel stood, slow and deliberate. Her heels clicked against the wooden floor, each step echoing like a war drum. She stopped in front of Jenna. The silence stretched until Jenna squirmed. "Miss Parker," Rachel said softly, too softly, "you claim my client, Melissa Carter, ordered you to withdraw corporate funds illegally. Do you have receipts? Emails? Anything?" Jenna's voice cracked. "No, it was verbal. She told me in her office." Rachel tilted her head. "Verbal? Just the 2 of you? No proof, no witnesses?" Jenna shifted in her seat. "Yes, but..." She made it clear what she wanted. Rachel's smile was cold, cutting. "And yet, Miss Parker, in your 5 years of working for her, not a single complaint was ever filed, not a single HR record, not one disciplinary action?" Jenna blinked rapidly. Silence. Rachel leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Only the jury and Jenna could hear. "Or maybe, Miss Parker, you were promised something to sit here and lie." The words slashed through the air. Greg's lawyer jumped up. "Objection. Counsel is harassing the witness." The judge hesitated, then overruled. "Proceed carefully, Miss Avery." Rachel circled Jenna slowly, like a hunter. "You said Melissa was cruel, that she yelled, berated you, and made you cry." Rachel's tone was deceptively gentle. "So, why, after you left Phoenix Dynamics, did you write this?" She held up a printed email. Rachel read aloud. "Melissa, thank you for being the best boss I've ever had. I learned more under you than I could have anywhere else. I'll always be grateful." The courtroom gasped. Jenna's face drained of color. I was just being polite." Rachel's voice sharpened. "Polite? You praised her. You thanked her. You admired her leadership. And now you expect this jury to believe she was a monster?" I couldn't hold back anymore. "Why, Jenna?" I shouted, my voice breaking. "After everything I did for you, why?" The judge banged his gavel. "Order in the court." But Jenna wouldn't look at me. She just stared down at her trembling hands. And in that silence, something inside me cracked wide open. I remembered a night 2 years ago, the company gala. Jenna had too much champagne, and Greg had whispered something into her ear that made her laugh nervously. Back then, I ignored it. But now I realized she'd been in their pocket for years. Rachel sat down beside me, eyes burning with determination. We shook her. "She's done." But Melissa paused. "You remembered something just now." "What is it?" I whispered back, my hands trembling. "The gala, 2 years ago. Greg slipped her something. I thought it was harmless, but maybe it wasn't. Rachel's eyes widened. Did anyone else see it? I closed my eyes, searching my memory. And then yes, one person did, a photographer. The gala had been covered for a magazine. Flashbulbs everywhere, I gasped. There might be photos. Rachel's lips curved into the faintest smile. If those photos exist, we don't just have a witness, we have proof of their corruption. But before I could breathe, Greg leaned forward from his table. His eyes locked on mine, and he mouthed two words, slow, deliberate. You're finished. A shiver ran down my spine. The war wasn't just in the courtroom anymore. It was personal. The courthouse doors slammed shut behind me. I leaned against the cold marble wall, my chest rising and falling too fast. Rachel's voice cut through the chaos. Melissa, breathe. You're shaking, I whispered. He looked at me, Rachel, like he already won. Rachel's hand gripped my shoulder, firm but steady. No, he's losing, and that's why he's desperate. We rushed back to her office. Stacks of files, half-empty coffee cups, case binders scattered everywhere. It felt like a war room. Rachel threw her jacket across the chair. Tell me everything about that gala, start to finish. Don't leave out a detail. I closed my eyes. The lights, the champagne, the music. And then I saw it again, Greg leaning in close to Jenna, his hand sliding a folded envelope into hers. Her laugh, nervous, guilty. I opened my eyes. A photographer was there, freelance, not company media. He had a beard, maybe mid-30s. He followed us for candid shots all night. Rachel's eyes sharpened. If he caught that exchange, Melissa, it's over for them. Rachel started making calls. Check local magazines, charity newsletters, even blogs. Someone had to credit him. Hours passed. No luck. Finally, I remembered the gala was hosted by the Austin Business Review. They published a spread. Rachel grabbed her laptop, fingers flying. And there it was, an archived article. The byline, photography by Daniel Reyes. Daniel's studio was tucked away in an old brick building near downtown Austin. We climbed the narrow staircase, each step creaking beneath our weight. Rachel knocked sharply. No answer. She knocked again. Finally, the door opened a crack. A man with tired eyes and a scruffy beard peered out. Studios closed. No sessions today. Rachel held up her card. Daniel Reyes? I'm attorney Rachel Avery. We need to talk. His eyes narrowed. About? I stepped forward, my voice trembling. The gala. 2 years ago. You were there. You took photos. Daniel's face drained of color. He opened the door wider, motioning us in quickly. The blinds were already drawn. Do you know how many people have asked me about those photos? He whispered. Men in suits. Big money. They told me to delete everything. Rachel's voice was steady. But you didn't. Daniel hesitated, then pulled out a hard drive from a locked drawer. His hands shook as he held it. I couldn't. I knew what I saw. That man, Greg Thompson, slipping cash to his assistant. I caught it on camera. But ever since, I've been followed, threatened. My heart pounded. Daniel, please. You don't understand. They destroyed my life. Those photos could save me. Suddenly, a heavy knock rattled the studio door. Daniel froze. Rachel's eyes flashed toward me. Melissa, don't move. Another knock. Louder this time. A man's voice on the other side. Open up, Reyes. We know you're in there. Daniel's face turned ghost white. They found me again, he whispered. Rachel grabbed the hard drive, shoving it into her bag. We're leaving. Now, the 3 of us slipped out the back exit, rushing down the narrow stairwell. Footsteps thundered from above. Greg's men had forced their way inside. My pulse roared in my ears. Rachel hissed, "Keep moving." We darted into the alley, Daniel, leading us toward his car. But headlights flared at the end of the street. A black SUV idles, waiting. Rachel swore under her breath. "They're watching every exit." Daniel shoved the car keys into Rachel's hand. "Take it. If they see me, they'll follow. But if you run now, you still have a chance." I grabbed his arm desperately. "No, Daniel, come with us." But he shook his head, fear etched deep into his face. "I've lived with this for 2 years. If you don't make it to court with that evidence, then none of this matters." Behind us, the sound of boots hitting pavement grew closer. They were coming. Rachel grabbed my wrist. "Melissa, run!" And we sprinted into the night. The hard drive, the truth clutched against my chest. We didn't stop running until Rachel's SUV screeched into the underground garage beneath her office building. The hard drive pressed against my chest like it was my only heartbeat left. Inside the dimly lit office, Rachel slammed the door shut and locked it. Her voice was sharp. "Melissa, sit, breathe. We're not safe yet." But my hands wouldn't stop shaking. What if they already have Daniel? What if he doesn't make it? Rachel crouched in front of me, her eyes burning with resolve. "Then we make sure his risk wasn't for nothing. That drive is the weapon Greg can't survive." Rachel connected the hard drive to her laptop. The screen flickered. Folders appeared, thousands of raw image files. She whispered, "Come on, come on." Scrolling, scanning, searching, then she froze. "Melissa, look, on the screen, a candid shot. Greg is leaning in close to Jenna. The envelope slides between their hands. Her smile tight, nervous. His eyes cold, calculating." I gasped. "That's it. That's the proof." Rachel nodded, but as she clicked deeper into the files, something else appeared. A second folder, encrypted, locked with a password. Rachel muttered, "What the hell?" Before we could dig further, Rachel's phone buzzed. An unknown number, she answered cautiously. "Who is this?" Static. Then Daniel's trembling voice. "They have me." My stomach dropped. "Daniel? Oh my God, are you hurt?" He whispered, voice breaking. "They're holding me in some warehouse by the river. They want the drive back. Melissa, they said if you don't return it tonight, they'll make me disappear." Rachel's grip tightened on the phone. "Daniel, listen to me. Hold on. Don't say another word. We'll find you." But the line cut dead. I pressed my hands to my face, tears burning hot. "They'll kill him. Rachel, they'll kill him because of me." Rachel's jaw clenched. "This is exactly what Greg wants. Fear, panic. He's using Daniel as leverage." I whispered, broken. "Then what do we do?" She leaned close, eyes unyielding. "We play smarter. We don't hand over the drive, we unlock it. Whatever's hidden in that encrypted folder. Greg is terrified of it getting out, which means it's bigger than just bribery." Rachel called her tech contact, a forensic IT expert named Mark. Within an hour, he was in her office, typing furiously. The sound of his keyboard was the only thing filling the silence. Finally, he exhaled. "Got it." The folder opened. Inside, dozens of financial ledgers, offshore accounts, money laundering, wire transfers to shell companies. Rachel's eyes widened. "Melissa, this isn't just about your company. Greg's running a fraud empire." My blood ran cold, and suddenly, I understood that's why he needed me gone. If I ever stumbled on this, it would all collapse before we could absorb it. Mark's laptop beeped. An alert. He frowned. Wait, your system's being traced. Someone's trying to breach the network, Rachel cursed under her breath. They're in our system. Greg knows we're digging. I felt my chest tighten. Then he knows we have the drive. Mark yanked cables free, shutting everything down. Too late. He's onto you now. A heavy silence fell. Rachel stared at the dark laptop screen, then at me. Her voice was calm, but it carried a deadly weight. Melissa, Greg won't stop until he erases every trace of this, including Daniel, including you. My throat tightened. What are you saying? Rachel looked me dead in the eyes. I'm saying the courtroom isn't enough anymore. We're at war now. The room fell into silence, only the hum of the city outside, and the realization that Greg wasn't just a traitor. He was a criminal empire in disguise, and I was the only one who could destroy him. The silence in Rachel's office was suffocating. Her words kept echoing in my mind. We're at war now. I sat frozen, my heart pounding. War? This wasn't a boardroom battle anymore. This was life or death, I whispered, my voice trembling. Rachel, if they hurt Daniel, I'll never forgive myself. This is my fault. Rachel gripped my shoulders firmly. No, listen to me. This is Greg's fault. He created this mess. He dragged you into his empire of lies. If we don't fight back, he wins. And Daniel will just be another casualty. I felt the tears burning in my eyes. But how do we fight someone like him? He has money, power, connections, he owns people. Rachel's expression hardened. Then we use what he doesn't have. Truth, evidence. And you, Melissa, you're the face he underestimated. Rachel pulled out a city map, spreading it across the desk. The call came from the Riverfront District. There are only 3 abandoned warehouses in that zone. My guess they're holding Daniel in one of them. I leaned closer, pointing at the darkest corner of the map. That one. Greg used to talk about owning storage space near the docks, always off the books. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Then that's where we start. Mark, the IT expert, rejoined us with a portable rig. He said quietly, I copied everything from the drive before the system breach. We've got the full evidence. Bribery, fraud, money laundering. If we leak this strategically, Greg won't survive the storm. Rachel smirked, sharp and determined. Good, but first, we get Daniel. We can't fight while he's still their bargaining chip. Mark hesitated. You'll need backup. Greg isn't the kind of man to keep only one guard watching. Rachel looked at me, then back at Mark. Melissa and I don't have an army, but we have brains and desperation. Sometimes that's enough. As Rachel loaded a small handgun into her bag, my breath caught. You have a gun? She didn't look at me when she answered. Melissa, this isn't the courtroom anymore. If Greg wants to play dirty, then so will we. I swallowed hard. But I've never, she cut me off, her tone low but firm. You won't have to. Just stay behind me. But if it comes down to Daniel's life or theirs, you'll know what to do. Her words shook me to my core. Could I pull the trigger to save him? I didn't want to know the answer. Before leaving, Rachel packed another weapon, the hard drive. I asked, whispering, why bring it? Isn't that dangerous? She looked at me with a calculating smile. Because Greg thinks it's his leverage, but really it's ours. If they want it so badly, then we'll use it to draw them out. The drive sat in Rachel's bag as we drove through the sleeping city. Every streetlight blurred through the windshield. My heart beat louder than the engine. Finally, we reached the docks. Silent, cold, The warehouse loomed like a steel tomb. Rachel whispered, "This is it." We slipped inside through a side door Mark had picked. The smell of rust and oil hit my nose instantly. The far end of the warehouse dim light. And then I saw him, Daniel, tied to a chair, a bruise swelling across his face. My breath caught. "Daniel," I whispered, but Rachel grabbed my wrist sharply. "Quiet. Look." Two men stood nearby, armed, and in the shadows, a familiar silhouette, Greg. His voice cut through the silence. "You really thought you could outsmart me, Daniel? You're just a pawn. Melissa is the real threat. And when she crawls back here with my drive, I'll erase her too." My stomach twisted. Every muscle in my body wanted to scream, but Rachel's grip held me back. Her eyes locked on me, whispering so softly I barely heard, "This is our moment. We let him talk. We let him confess. Then, we take him down." My fingers trembled around the phone Rachel had given me. She gestured for me to hit record, and as Greg's voice filled the warehouse, admitting to everything, I pressed the button. But then Greg stopped suddenly. His head turned, and his voice dropped into a dangerous whisper. "Melissa." The shadows shifted. His eyes locked on me. He knew. He had seen me. Greg's voice was like a blade, slicing through the warehouse silence. "Melissa." My blood froze. Rachel stiffened beside me, and in that instant, the two guards turned, weapons lifting in unison. I stepped back, my breath caught in my throat. He had seen me. The game was over. Greg stepped forward, the dim light spilling across his sharp grin. Well, look who finally crawled back. My little liability." Daniel jerked against his ropes, shouting hoarsely, "Melissa, get out. Don't let him." One of the guards backhanded him, silencing him with a sickening crack. My chest burned with rage. I shouted, voice trembling but loud, "Don't you touch him." Greg chuckled darkly. "There she is, finally showing some fire. But you're too late. You had your chance to be loyal, Melissa. Instead, you sided with outsiders." Rachel finally moved from the shadows, her gun raised and steady. "Drop it, Greg. You're done." The room shifted instantly. The guards froze, hands hovering over their weapons. Greg only laughed. "Rachel, of course, the righteous lawyer, sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. What's the matter? Couldn't ruin me in court, so you came here to play hero?" Rachel's tone was ice. "No, Greg, I'm not here as a lawyer. I'm here as a witness. And right now you're confessing on tape." Greg's smile faltered. His eyes flicked to me. My hand trembled as I held up the phone. "Everything you just said is recorded," I whispered, my voice shaking but clear. "Your threats, your fraud, your plan to erase me, for the first time." Greg's face cracked. The mask slipped, but then his expression hardened. He snapped his fingers. The guards raised their guns at me instantly. Greg's voice dropped low, venomous. "Hand it over. The phone, the drive, now, or Daniel dies right here in front of you." Daniel's eyes widened, his muffled voice desperate. "Melissa, don't." I froze. My heart thundered. Rachel whispered, just loud enough for me to hear, "Don't break. He's bluffing. He needs Daniel alive. He needs leverage." But my hands shook uncontrollably. Because what if she was wrong? I swallowed hard, tears stinging my eyes. "Greg, please. This doesn't have to end like this," he sneered. "Oh, but it does. You were supposed to be silent, obedient. Instead, you turned into a problem. And I don't tolerate problems." He stepped closer, voice dripping with malice. "Give me the drive, Melissa, or you'll watch him bleed." Suddenly, Rachel smirked. Funny thing, Greg. You always thought you were the smartest man in the room. Greg's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? Rachel tilted her head. The moment you started talking, the feed went live. Greg blinked. What? I realized then Rachel had already synced my phone with Mark's system. Every word Greg had said had already been uploaded to secure servers. Rachel whispered fiercely, even if you kill us now, it's too late. The world already knows who you are. Greg's face twisted with rage. You lying. He lunged forward, grabbing me by the arm, yanking me toward him. I screamed, struggling, the phone tumbling from my hand. Rachel shouted, "Let her go." The guards shifted uneasily, their guns still raised. But Greg's grip was like iron. He hissed in my ear, "If I go down, Melissa, I'm dragging you with me." Then chaos. Rachel fired. The shot echoed, deafening. One guard fell instantly. The second spun, firing wildly. Sparks exploded against the steel walls. Daniel screamed my name. I twisted in Greg's grip, kicking against him, clawing at his arm. Rachel shouted, "Melissa now." I spotted the fallen guard's gun sliding across the floor. My heart raced. My hands shook. But I dove for it. My fingers closed around the cold metal. I lifted it, the weight foreign and terrifying. Greg loomed over me, furious, snarling. "You don't have the guts." I aimed, my hands trembling violently. My breath came in gasps, and in that instant, I thought of Daniel, his bruised face, his voice calling my name. The man I loved. My voice broke as I whispered, "You're wrong." A shot rang out. The warehouse echoed with the sound of gunfire. Greg's body jerked, but whose bullet was it? Mine or Rachel's? Daniel shouted, his voice raw and desperate. "Melissa." The smoke hung in the air, and as Greg staggered, blood spreading across his shirt, he smiled, not a grin of defeat, but of a man who still had one final card to play. This is where everything pays off. Greg's final card, the last confrontation, Daniel's rescue, and Melissa's emotional reflection as she walks away not with forgiveness, but clarity and power. The gunshots still echoed in my ears. Smoke lingered. In the warehouse, sharp and suffocating, Greg staggered backward, clutching his chest. Blood seeped through his shirt, dark, heavy, but his eyes burned with a twisted satisfaction. He rasped, voice strained but mocking, You think this is over?" Rachel kept her gun steady, her voice cold. "Drop the act, Greg. It's done. You're finished." But Greg only laughed, a weak, rasping sound that sent a shiver down my spine. "You really think I'd come here without insurance?" Rachel's face tensed. "What do you mean?" Greg coughed, spitting blood, but grinning still. "Check your precious live feed. Every word, every second, already mirrored to my people. If I die, if I go down, everything burns. The company, the assets, the secrets, even Daniel's freedom." My heart dropped. He wasn't bluffing. He couldn't be. I stepped closer, my gun still trembling in my hand. "Greg, you've destroyed everything already. The company's gone. Your empire is crumbling. What else do you think you can take from me?" He sneered, his voice breaking but sharp. "Your dignity, your victory. Because even if I die here, you'll never know if I was bluffing. You'll live every day wondering when it all comes crashing down." My chest ached, terror stinging my eyes. But then I remembered Rachel's words. The live feed, the servers, the truth is already out. In the open, I steadied my breath, and for the first time, my hands stopped shaking. No, Greg, I whispered. You don't get to haunt me anymore. Rachel moved swiftly, cutting Daniel free. Daniel collapsed forward, groaning, his wrists raw and bloody. He looked up at me, his voice hoarse. Melissa, are you okay? I nodded, my voice breaking. I am now, but before relief could settle, Greg lunged again, a desperate last attempt. He grabbed for the gun, snarling, if I die, I'm taking you with me. Time slowed. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I tightened my grip. I didn't think. I just pulled the trigger. The shot tore through the air. Greg jerked violently and then collapsed. His body hit the concrete with a hollow thud. This time, there was no smile, no bluff, just silence. For a moment, the warehouse was eerily still. Then Rachel exhaled sharply, lowering her weapon. It's over, she whispered. I dropped the gun, my knees giving out. Daniel rushed to me, pulling me into his arms. I buried my face against him, sobbing into his chest. Rachel crouched beside us, her voice steady. The evidence is safe. The servers are locked. His empire won't survive the week. I lifted my head, my tears hot but my voice firm. Good. Let it burn. Days later, the news broke like wildfire. Headlines screamed Greg's downfall. CEO exposed in fraud and conspiracy scandal. Partners betrayed woman's secret recording brings down corrupt empire. Everywhere, people whispered his name, but not with respect anymore, with disgust. And me? For once, I wasn't the silent one. I wasn't the liability. I was the survivor. I stood on the balcony of my new office, my company now rebuilt from the ashes. The city stretched before me, glowing with possibility. Daniel stepped beside me, his arm brushing mine. You did it, he whispered. You got it all back. I shook my head, a small smile tugging at my lips. No, I didn't get it back. I built something new, something that's finally mine. I turned my gaze to the horizon, my voice steady. Greg thought betrayal would break me, but it only forged me into someone stronger. Someone who doesn't beg, someone who doesn't wait, someone who takes back her power. I closed my eyes, inhaling the cool night air, and when I opened them again, I felt lighter, not because I forgave, but because I no longer needed to. I whispered into the silence, this is my revenge, and it's enough.